Martha Hayes had cleaned the same building for 25 years, and in 25 years, not one person had ever asked her how her day was going. That morning, 2 security guards stood on either side of her like she was dangerous. Like she might steal something on her way out, after a quarter of a century of being the first one in and the last one to leave. Behind the glass walls of the executive lounge, a young manager sipped his coffee and laughed. "She's just a janitor," he said, loud enough for her to hear. Martha didn't turn around. She picked up her small canvas bag, the same bag she'd carried since her first day, and walked toward the door her own hands had polished 1,000 times. No goodbye, no thank you, no pension, nothing. But 3 weeks later, a man she'd never met would sit alone in an office at midnight, staring at a forgotten file cabinet, and what he found inside would unravel everything. Careers would collapse. Lies that had survived 25 years would finally break apart. And the world would learn that the woman they threw away like garbage had quietly been the reason the company never fell. Because Martha hadn't just been cleaning the building. She had been saving it. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Trust us, you do not want to miss how this story ends. Who was this quiet old woman really? Why did powerful executives flinch whenever her name came up in meetings? What was hidden inside the notebooks she kept locked away for 2 decades? Notebooks nobody, not even her own children, knew existed. And what did a brand new CEO discover that made him freeze mid-sentence, cancel every scheduled meeting, and lock his office door for the rest of the day? The answers were buried in forgotten files, deleted records, and secrets that powerful people had convinced themselves would stay hidden forever. They were wrong. Martha was 63 years old. Soft voice, steady hands. The kind of person who said good morning to everyone and expected nothing back, and usually got nothing back. She arrived before the sun came up and left long after the last light in the building switched off. She knew which floor tiles creaked. She knew which executives fought behind closed doors and which ones cried in the stairwell when they thought no one could see. She knew everything, because nobody ever thought to lower their voice around the janitor. "You're like a ghost," a young intern once told her, half joking. "I swear you're already here when I arrive, and you're still here when I leave." Martha had smiled. "Somebody has to hold the place together," she said. What none of them knew, what none of them ever bothered to ask, was that Martha possessed a memory like a steel trap. She remembered dates. She remembered names. She remembered the exact afternoon, 11 years earlier, when 2 accountants stayed late arguing about numbers that didn't add up, numbers that would have bankrupted the entire company if no one had caught them in time. She remembered who got the credit for catching them. It wasn't her. It was never her. She had given this company everything. She missed her daughter's high school graduation because of a flooded server room on the same night. She worked through 3 holidays in a row one terrible year because nobody else would. She told herself, every single time, that loyalty mattered. That one day, someone would notice. The building would fall apart before Martha ever left it. Her co-workers used to joke in the break room. They had no idea how close to the truth those words actually were. Victor Langford was the company's operations director, and everyone agreed he was destined for bigger things. Charming in the boardroom, magnetic in interviews, ruthless the moment the cameras turned off. To Victor, employees weren't people. They were line items. And older employees, in his eyes, were line items that cost too much and produced too little. "We need to trim the fat," he told a room full of department heads one Monday morning. "Long-tenured staff are expensive. Sentiment doesn't show up on a balance sheet." Beside him sat Gloria Reed, head of human resources. Cold where Victor was charming. Precise where he was loud. Gloria had built her entire career on one particular skill: making problems disappear quietly, cleanly, with paperwork so airtight that no one ever thought to ask questions. Together, Victor and Gloria ran the company from the shadows, 2 executives nodding politely in meetings while building something far darker behind closed doors. And there was exactly one obstacle standing in their way. A woman who had been around far too long, who had seen far too much, who knew exactly where every body, every secret, every cover-up was buried. Martha. The trouble started the way trouble like this always starts, quietly, with a memo nobody read carefully enough. Aggressive cost-cutting measures, the email said. Departments would be restructured. Benefits would be reviewed. Within a month, the older employees, the loyal ones, the ones who remembered the company before it was profitable, before it had a logo people recognized, began disappearing one by one. Martha became the easiest target of all. First, they cut her break times in half. Then they doubled her cleaning territory without adding a single extra hour to her shift. Young managers started making comments just loud enough for her to hear. "Maybe it's time for some new blood around here," one of them said in the elevator, not even glancing at her. Someone began leaving deliberate messes, overturned trash cans, spilled coffee, shredded paper scattered across the floor, testing her, mocking her, daring her to complain. She never did. One afternoon, an executive accidentally knocked his coffee cup off his desk right as Martha walked past with her cart. "Whoops," he said, smirking. "Good thing you're here. That's job security for you." The room laughed. Martha knelt down, wiped the floor clean, and said nothing. Inside, something cracked. But her hands didn't shake. 25 years had taught her how to keep her hands steady even when her heart wasn't. Then came the meeting that ended everything. An email arrived in Martha's inbox on a Wednesday morning. A simple, sterile subject line. HR meeting request. She thought, foolishly, that maybe it was good news. Maybe, after all these years, someone had finally noticed. She walked into Gloria's office and found Victor already seated, arms crossed, a manila folder sitting on the table between them like a closed coffin. "Martha, please sit," Gloria said, her voice smooth as glass. Martha sat. "We've run a full audit of employee records," Gloria continued, sliding the folder forward without opening it. "And we've found some discrepancies in your file." "Discrepancies?" Martha asked. "Several years of your service history appear to be missing from our system," Gloria said. "Your pension contributions can't be verified for nearly a decade. According to what we can confirm," she paused, as if choosing her words delicately, "the company owes you significantly less than you might have expected." Martha felt the floor tilt beneath her. "I've worked here 25 years, she said quietly. "Every single day. I have pay stubs. I have." "We understand this is upsetting," Gloria interrupted, not unkindly, but not kindly either. "But the system doesn't lie." "The system isn't a person," Martha said, her voice rising for the first time in years. "People put information into a system. People can take it out, too." Victor leaned forward, his tone flat and final. "Martha, the decision has already been made above us. We're terminating your position, effective today." The words landed like a physical blow. Martha opened her mouth to speak, to fight, to demand someone, anyone, actually listen to her. But Victor had already slid the termination form across the table and was uncapping his pen. "Sign here," he said. She didn't sign it. She didn't need to. The decision, as he'd said, had already been made. 2 security guards appeared at the door less than 10 minutes later, as if they'd been waiting in the hallway the entire time. As if this had all been planned before she ever walked in. She gathered her things in silence. No one in the building said a word to her. No one walked her out. No one said thank you for 25 years of mornings, holidays, and missed family dinners. She simply disappeared, the same way the company had been training itself to forget her for years. If you're still watching up to now, type, "I'm still here," in the comment section. Let's see how many of you are feeling this story the way we are. As Martha cleared out her locker, her fingers brushed against something behind a loose panel in the back. Something cold, something metal, something she hadn't touched in years. A small brass key. And the moment it touched her palm, a memory surfaced that she had buried so deep she'd almost convinced herself it never happened at all. That night, Martha sat on the floor of her small apartment, surrounded by cardboard boxes she hadn't opened in over a decade. Inside one of them, wrapped carefully in an old scarf, were dozens of notebooks. Composition books, really, the cheap kind sold at corner stores, their covers worn soft from handling. She opened the first one and ran her fingers across the dates written in careful, looping handwriting. She hadn't kept these notebooks out of bitterness. She had kept them because, somewhere along the way, she had decided that the truth mattered, even if no one ever asked for it. Every irregular meeting she'd overheard while emptying trash cans late at night. Every suspicious financial conversation. Every time a report mysteriously vanished right before an audit. Every time, she found unlocked filing cabinets containing things that should never have been left unattended. She wrote it all down. Dates, names, details. Not for revenge. For the record. 3 weeks after Martha walked out of that building for the last time, a man named Daniel Brooks walked in as its new chief executive officer. Daniel was different from the executives who came before him. He didn't trust shortcuts. He didn't trust summaries written by other people. He wanted to see the raw files himself. During his first month, doing what he called a full transparency audit, Daniel began noticing something strange. Entire years of company records were incomplete. Critical financial reports that should have existed simply weren't there. Past crises, near bankruptcies, internal thefts, compliance violations that should have destroyed the company had somehow been resolved with no clear explanation of who had caught them or how. This doesn't make sense, Daniel muttered to himself one night, staring at a screen full of financial records that contradicted each other. He called in the head archivist the next morning. I need every physical file from the last 25 years. Not the digital summaries. The originals. Sir, some of that's in long-term storage, the archivist said. It hasn't been touched in years. Then it's about time someone touched it, Daniel replied. It took 2 full days to locate the old storage room, a forgotten corner of the basement, behind a door nobody had opened in what looked like a decade. Inside, beneath layers of dust, sat a row of metal filing cabinets. One of them was locked. Daniel found a key ring with no labels, tried every key, and on the 11th attempt, the lock clicked open. Inside were reports, dozens of them, all signed the exact same way. Anonymous employee. Reports that had stopped fraud before it spread. Reports that had flagged warehouse theft months before it could be discovered any other way. Reports that had quietly prevented disasters that would have ended the company entirely. And every single one of them, every single one, had been buried instead of investigated, instead of praised. Someone inside this company had been a silent hero for over 2 decades, and somehow, nobody had ever known their name. Daniel became obsessed. He pulled internal security archives, cross-referencing timestamps from the anonymous reports with footage from the building's old camera systems. It took his security team nearly a week to dig up storage drives old enough to match the dates. When the first piece of footage finally loaded onto his screen, Daniel leaned forward, eyes fixed on the grainy image. A woman in a gray uniform stood near a filing cabinet late at night, copying something onto a notepad before slipping it into her cart and continuing down the hallway as if nothing had happened. He paused the footage and stared. Pull her employee file, he told his assistant. Now. Minutes later, a name appeared on his screen. Martha Hayes, custodial staff. Terminated 3 weeks ago. Daniel sat back in his chair, stunned into silence. He kept watching. Recording after recording, year after year, the same woman appeared again and again, always in the background, always unnoticed, always working. In one video, dated 11 years earlier, Martha could clearly be seen photographing financial documents that, according to internal records, had later, miraculously, been caught by the accounting department, sparing the company from a near collapse. The accountants who took credit for that discovery had been promoted within the month. In another recording, Martha was seen reporting unusual activity near the warehouse loading docks, activity that, weeks later, exposed a massive internal theft ring. The man who had publicly taken credit for catching the thieves, who had used that exact discovery to launch his rise through the company. Victor Langford. Daniel felt sick. He pulled Martha's pension file next, the one Gloria had used to justify her termination. What he found made his hands tighten into fists. Years of service records had been deliberately altered. Contribution data had been selectively deleted, not lost, deleted, with timestamps showing exactly when and by whom. Someone had reached into Martha's file and erased over a decade of her life with a few keystrokes. Someone had robbed her. On purpose. In broad daylight. Inside a system everyone trusted. Daniel didn't sleep that night. The next morning, he asked his assistant for one thing. Find Martha Hayes' address, he said. I need to speak with her myself. When Daniel knocked on Martha's door 2 days later, she opened it expecting another piece of bad news. A debt collector, maybe, or another letter confirming she had nothing left. Instead, a tall man in a simple coat stood on her doorstep, holding a folder thick with papers. Mrs. Hayes, he said gently. My name is Daniel Brooks. I'm the new CEO. May I come in? Martha hesitated, then stepped aside. They sat across from each other at her small kitchen table. Daniel slid the folder toward her. Printouts of the anonymous reports, stills from the security footage, copies of the altered pension records. I need to ask you something, he said quietly. And I need you to be honest with me. Is this you? Martha looked at the photographs for a long moment. Then she nodded, slowly, like admitting something she'd hidden even from herself. Why didn't you tell anyone what you did for this company? Daniel asked, his voice cracking slightly. You saved this place. More than once. You should have been celebrated. Instead, you were thrown out like you were nothing. Martha was quiet for a moment, her eyes distant. Then she said the words that would stay with Daniel for the rest of his life. People don't listen when you're the one holding the mop. Daniel had no response. He simply sat there, the weight of 25 years of silence settling over the small kitchen table between them. I never wanted credit, Martha continued softly. I just wanted the truth to exist somewhere, even if no one ever read it. Well, Daniel said, finally finding his voice, someone's reading it now. 2 weeks later, every department head, every manager, and every executive received the same calendar invitation, mandatory company-wide meeting. No agenda, no explanation, just a time and a place. Victor arrived early, smoothing his tie, already rehearsing his acceptance speech in his head. Word around the office was that a major announcement was coming, and Victor had convinced himself, completely, arrogantly, that it could only be one thing. His promotion to Chief Operating Officer. He took a seat near the front, beside Gloria, who looked equally confident in her tailored blazer. Daniel walked to the podium. The room buzzed with quiet anticipation. 25 years ago, Daniel began. This company nearly collapsed 3 separate times. Each time, it was saved. Each time, someone inside these walls quietly stepped in, documented the problem, and protected everyone in this room from losing their jobs. He clicked a remote. The first image appeared on the giant screen behind him, an old security still, grainy but unmistakable. This is the person who saved us. Every single time. Whispers rippled through the crowd as Martha's face filled the screen. That's the janitor, someone whispered. She got fired, someone else muttered. Didn't Victor sign off on that? Victor's smile faltered for the first time. Daniel clicked again. Reports appeared, the anonymous documents, now matched with timestamps and Martha's handwriting samples confirmed by forensic analysis. Then security footage, playing in sequence, showing Martha catching the very fraud that Victor had publicly claimed credit for. Then the warehouse theft footage, exposing the truth behind the discovery that had launched Victor's entire executive career. Then came the pension records, the altered files, the deleted years, the digital fingerprints leading directly back to 2 specific login credentials. Gloria's and Victor's. The room had gone completely silent. Phones lowered. Coffee cups froze halfway to lips. Victor's face had drained of all color. This is a misunderstanding, he said, standing abruptly, his voice cracking under the weight of 200 staring eyes. These records could mean anything. They mean exactly what they say, Daniel said, his voice steady and final. You built your career on a woman's work, and then you erased her from the system that was supposed to protect her. Gloria opened her mouth, then closed it again. There was nothing left to say. The evidence on the screen spoke louder than any explanation she could invent. Comment below if this twist hit you the way it hit us. And if you haven't already, smash that like button and hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens next, because the story isn't over yet. Just as the room sat frozen in stunned silence, the side door opened, and an older man walked in, slow, deliberate, leaning slightly on a cane. A few of the longest-tenured employees gasped audibly. It was the company's founder. Retired for nearly a decade, rarely seen in public, and never once present at a company meeting since he'd stepped down. I asked Daniel to let me say a few words, the founder said, his voice rough but clear. 20 years ago, I set aside a reward fund for any employee who protected this company from collapse, whether through innovation, sacrifice, or simply telling the truth when no one wanted to hear it. That fund was meant to be activated the moment such an employee was identified. It was never claimed. He paused, looking directly at Martha's image still glowing on the screen behind him. Because every report that should have triggered it was buried by the very people responsible for reviewing it. He turned to Daniel. With decades of accumulated growth, That fund is no longer small. Daniel nodded and turned back to the room. Martha Hayes will be reinstated immediately, not as custodial staff, but with full recognition of every contribution she made to this company. Her pension will be restored in full, with every missing year corrected, and she will receive the reward fund in its entirety, along with company shares as a gesture of long overdue respect. The number that appeared on the screen made the entire room inhale at once. It was not a small correction. It was not a modest apology. It was an amount that dwarfed even the highest executive salaries in the building. 25 years of silence, finally paid in full. Victor was escorted out of the building that same afternoon, his termination effective immediately, with an internal investigation opened into the fraud surrounding his promotion. Gloria faced something far more serious: a formal referral for criminal investigation into the deliberate falsification of employee records, a betrayal that went far beyond Martha alone once auditors began digging deeper. Martha walked back into the building one final time the following week, not with a cleaning cart, but in a simple navy dress, her hands no longer shaking from exhaustion, but from something else entirely. As she stepped into the lobby, something happened that hadn't happened in 25 years. Every single employee in the room stood up. They applauded, not because she had cleaned the building for 2.5 decades, though she had done that with more dedication than anyone could ask. They applauded because she had protected it, quietly, faithfully, asking for nothing in return, while the people meant to lead it had nearly destroyed it from the inside. The same security guards who had once escorted her out like a criminal now stood by the door, opening it for her with quiet, genuine respect. One of them, the younger of the two, looked her in the eye and said simply, "I'm sorry, ma'am. We didn't know." Martha just smiled. "Now you do," she said. Some people make noise to prove they matter. Others spend their entire lives quietly carrying the weight of everything around them, asking for nothing, expected to disappear without complaint. The tragedy isn't that Martha worked in silence for 25 years. The tragedy is how close the truth came to staying buried forever, locked behind a cabinet nobody bothered to open. And the lesson, the one worth carrying with you long after this video ends, is simple. Never assume someone's value by the job title in front of their name. Sometimes the person everyone overlooks is the very reason everything around them is still standing. That's where we'll leave Martha's story. A woman who gave everything to a place that gave her nothing back, until the truth finally found its way to the surface. We hope this story reminded you, the way it reminded us, that quiet loyalty deserves to be seen, and that the people we walk past every single day might be carrying more strength, more sacrifice, and more truth than we will ever know. Thank you so much for watching this story all the way to the end. It genuinely means the world to us. Tell us in the comments what part of Martha's story touched you the most, and if you enjoyed this one, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next powerful story of hidden truth, betrayal, and justice. We'll see you in the next one.